Hi again, friends. Welcome back to my channel. I'm Heather, also known as Rycrafty over on Instagram. Yes, hello. This channel is Rycrafty, where I talk about all my sewing and knitting projects are my main crafts of choice. This is my little sidekick, Conan, who is very helpful. Are you helpful? Yes, you are. And today I want to talk about some knitting projects. So I had a real knitting slump there for a while. I don't think I finished a single knitting project in all of 2021. At the beginning of 2020, I burned myself just on my forearm here, and that made me stop knitting for a while because I couldn't, and then I got out of the habit, and then 2-3 years later, 2022, I did finish some knitting projects. But today I want to talk about recent knitting projects that have happened this year. So, mittens. There's even 2 of them. I love these. These are the Linden mittens by Richmond, and this is my second pair. So the first pair I made out of a Minion stripe yarn because, come on, they're adorable. And so I bought that yarn, and then I realized I didn't want to make socks out of it. I wanted to make something that would last longer. And my friend Joanne, because this was a long time ago before I moved to where I live now, my friend Joanne had just made some Linden mittens, and they're perfect to show off stripy sock yarn, and they won't be stuffed in your shoes, and you can show them off more. So I had that Minion pair. I wore them and wore them and wore them. So that Minion pair of mittens I made in 2016, and then I wore them and wore them. They're the ones that I just stuff in the pocket of my winter coat, and they live there. And I usually use them while out walking His Highness, because they're really easy to slip on and off, so I can deal with the poop bag and all that, and yet I still have good grip on the leash. Because some thicker mittens I feel like I'm holding the leash through oven mitts, which doesn't feel very safe. So loved those mittens, wore them until they had literal holes. I thought I had saved them to show you, but I think I got excited cleaning the house and tossed them out before I could show the video. But I have a picture that I took of the new mittens versus the old mittens. You can see the holes, like my fingers were poking through. Knowing that those mittens had holes and were steadily growing more, I decided I needed a new pair, and I picked one of my, I think this is a fairly recent purchase of sock yarn. So this is yarn from the Cozy Knitter. It's the Bliss base, and it came as a stripe and then with the green solid. I bought this yarn in 2017, and I just said it was a recent purchase, whereas that was 6 years ago. And I think it honestly is still one of my more recent yarn purchases because I have so much yarn. I just haven't been buying. And you'll see that in my next project as well that I'm going to talk about. So yeah, this is Cozy Knitter. It came with the stripe and then a solid, which was probably meant for heels and toes, but I decided I used it for the cuff and then the thumb and then the tips of the fingers. And I think they're just so cute. I do need to figure out what to do with the rest of the yarn because this uses up, I would say, even less than half the skein. So with my Minion mittens, I may not have those mittens anymore, but I did make this hat to match, but it was just a little too small. And it's also really crazy to look at this hat. I wish I had dug this out before I tossed those mittens because the mittens were so faded. But yeah, so now I have this hat and no mittens to match it. And the hat has never really quite fit. It was a bit too small. So I suppose I can make a matching hat for those stripy mittens and just make sure I make it bigger than this one. I had a crazy idea though for this hat. I have a teapot. I love drinking tea. I do not have a tea cozy, even though I'm a knitter. And it struck me that this is about the size of a teapot, and all it needs is a hole for the handle and then a hole for my spout. So, update to come. May go crazy and cut 2 holes in this hat that I knit 7 years ago. And then I'll still get to enjoy the Minion yarn that I bought so long ago. The Minion yarn was Berry Colorful Yarnings. I have worn these mittens numerous times. They're perfect, as I said, for dog walking. And one of the things I love is just this tiny bit of shaping here. Like, you're going out for the thumb, but you go out just a tiny bit for the hand. Because, like, that's how hands are shaped. And I feel like, I mean, I haven't made that many mitten patterns, but not all of them do that. Maybe I just haven't made, maybe I'm just not remembering the other mittens I've knit, but these are great. They live in the pocket of my big blue winter coat, and they make me happy every time I put them on. I'm sorry, it's not comfy enough. Is my lap not comfy enough for you? So, in this video, it might look like I changed shirts, but I recorded some of this a couple weeks ago because I wanted to talk about everything that I've knitted so far in 2023. And I recorded it a few weeks ago, and then I was going to put it up, but then I got a lot of knitting done on a project, and I wanted to add that in. So this is an update on a particular project that I finished in March of 2023, and I don't even remember what color shirt I was wearing in the other video. I think it was red. When I'm wearing a maroon shirt, that's me, past me, from a couple weeks ago, telling you about the things that I've already knit in 2023. That version of me also talked about a work in progress, but surprise, it's done. Am I missing? Oh no, I'm not missing. Okay. I thought I was missing a piece. So yeah, I just have a whole other finished object. So if you put off posting your video long enough, you have more finished objects. So basically, as it's the end of March now, this is, I guess, what I've knitted in the first quarter of 2023. So I had a coworker who went on maternity leave in November, and in my 2022 sewing and knitting makes video, I showed you photos of the baby hat and baby sweater that I made for her, or her baby. And so now I have another coworker whose wife is pregnant, and of course that means another tiny sweater. Oh my goodness. And the reason I'm filming this now and not, say, hanging on to the weekend when I can be home when it's nice and light and all that is the baby is imminent. I procrastinated on finishing the last sleeve of this until I suddenly realized I need to get this done because the baby is coming soon. And so I'm doing this tonight, and then I'll package it up and take it to work tomorrow, give it to a coworker. So this pattern is the Petit Mariniere Moderne, and I think it's adorable. And yes, it is crazy colors. That's what I like about babies, is you can dress them however you want. I'm also someone who has never had a baby, no siblings, never babysat, very little, almost no experience with babies, so I never know. Like, I just follow the pattern. And whenever I'm knitting a baby knit, I love it because they're small, like smaller than adult size, obviously. But whenever I knit a baby knit, I spend a lot of time going, oh my god, it's too huge, babies are tiny. And then 2 days later, I'll be looking at it going, oh no, it's so tiny, babies are bigger than that, it's not going to fit. Eventually, I just tell myself, it will fit the baby at some point. Will it be now? Will it be next winter? Who knows? I think I did actually choose, I didn't do the newborn size in the sweater because it's, in theory, spring now. Even though it's still going to be cold. There will still be many more cold days until summer. But I think I knit the 6-month size, thinking that hopefully baby will fit this like next fall and winter. The pattern is for a striped sweater. Of course, in the Ravelry, like in the pattern photos, it's sort of very, excuse you, very sort of Breton stripe and cream with a navy stripe. I went crazy, and I knit this entirely out of scraps. And what's going to take the time in this video is me showing you all the projects these scraps came from. So I had this blue, and then I went through my scraps and I pulled some tiny little balls and used up some of the giant collection of sock yarn scraps that I have. Okay, so I knit the sweater on a US size 4 needle, which is 3.5 millimeter. So that is a much bigger needle than I would use for socks, even though it's sock yarn, but you want socks to be tough and you want baby sweaters to be soft. And I picked the blue as the main color because I knew I had a big enough scrap ball left over. They don't know the baby's gender, so the baby's gender is going to be a surprise. But I love this blue. I think it's got a little bit of silk or something in it, so it's very soft. And that blue came from leftovers of this project, which is the bigger on the inside scarf. As you can see, the pattern on the border there is a repeating pattern of TARDISes. And they even got a little bead for the light on the top there. Yeah, so this pattern is called Bigger on the Inside, and it's by Kate Atherley. And why don't we put it on? Because even though the heater is clanging, it's a little chilly. The yarn is Gale's Art Shiny Happy, which is 50-50 merino and silk. So, luxury baby sweater. Made out of stuff I already had in my apartment. So that's the main color. And then, as you can see, we get into the stripes. The body stripes, the main color, has some texture. So there's a little pearl pattern in the big wide blue stripes on the body, but not on the arms. So next stripe is this sort of creamy beigey color. That is leftovers from this blanket. So I knit this blanket out of 2 different advent calendar yarn kits from Opal, and I added these corners. So this is the second advent calendar kit I used. I added that sort of creamy yellow to the corners. That yarn was from Unique Sheep. I think it came in a sock. The mail thing, the surprise. Sock Club. That came as part of a sock club that I was in a million years ago. I never made the socks. I don't think I've ever made the socks from any sock club I was ever in, for the record. So that was that. Yarn from Unique Sheep. The orange. But yeah, so this is the Shetland Lace Triangle by Evelyn Clark. And this is from, again, a million years ago. Finished this in 2008. And that's when shawls were tiny. Like, this is just a 1 skein of sock yarn shawl. That may have been from a club as well. That's from Zen Yarn Garden. It's their Tensilicious base, so it's got some tencel in it, so it's got a nice sort of sheen and a silky feel to it. I don't really wear this because it's so... I realize I'm wearing another scarf, but even without that scarf, it's so small. Like, what do you do with a scarf this size? Not very much. Maybe I'm just going to keep wearing everything as I add it in. But yeah, so that's the orange. When I was planning out with the little balls of yarn what order I wanted to put these in, at one point I had it sort of rainbowish, but then I decided I'd rather have essentially random. And it also depended a little bit on how much yarn I had, because some of these I didn't have very much. Like this next color here, below, between the orange and the red, isn't a huge contrast with the blue, but that's a Koigu hand-painted colorway. I don't have the object anymore. I knit a pair of socks with that for my mum for Christmas one year. And again, that's at least 6 or more years ago. Okay, I said 6 or more. Turns out it was 2012. So more than 10 years ago was when I used that yarn. And I used up the last teensy tiniest piece. Like I had just enough to weave the end in and snip off an inch or 2, which was fun. So that's that color. Then the next one is this sort of maroon color, which I had a hard time remembering what this one was. I had to look through all my knits and still not entirely sure, but I think that maroon color, I think I used in this shawl and this hat, although when I hold them together, maybe not. It's hard to tell because both these patterns, there's another yarn with the solid maroon color. Maybe you can see that. Oh, you can see it better inside. Weirdly, this one isn't in my Ravelry. I'm gonna have to search harder. But this hat is 2 yarns, here held in rows and just purled, and here is brioche. And actually, if I turn it inside out, you can see the solid color yarn better. So that's solid. Is that solid? And that's Gaia's Colors yarn. I think it's the Palace sock. Yeah, I think that's probably the same. I think that's where that came from. Again, that color is something I've done a lot with. I made some baby booties for a different baby a long time ago who's probably a teenager now. Out of this color, I've used it as accents in a few things, just because it was a good accent color. And yeah, I've made this hat that is very soft, very comfy, and very big, even for my giant head. It tends to slide off. Next, the gray. Because it was getting kind of crazy, so I figured let's put something just solid and gray and simple in there. That one I couldn't remember the last time I filmed this, but then I remembered. I have my basket of knits here that I'm digging through. That is an accent in an extremely enormous shawl that I made out of 3 skeins of sock yarn. So this orange thing is 1 skein of sock yarn, and at the time I called it a scarf. This is 3 skeins of sock yarn, and I called it a scarf or a shawl. And the gray is the just sort of the border between these two very bright colors. Wow. I haven't opened this one up in a million years. Because while the 1 skein is so small, this practically feels like a blanket. But this is an Amba O'Brien shawl. I guess I'm doing this now. I guess I'm adding it to the collection. Ugh. Why wasn't this one last? And the gray, I think, is from another club. This is Soctopus Sakusu in River Styx from from the 2012 Cookie A Sock Yarn Club. Next really cold day, I promise you I will wear this enormous 3 skein scarf and report back. So that's a gray in my little tiny baby sweater. This pink, I do not know. I don't have any finished objects this color. I don't remember giving anyone any finished objects this color. I remember the yarn. I'm pretty sure it was Zen Yarn Garden. I tried knitting a pair of mittens in it that were cabled, that were so tight, because I was a fairly early knitter at that point, using teeny tiny needles and trying to cable this sock yarn. And like the mitten stood up by itself, and then I never made the second one. So I might, but I only had a tiny ball in my scraps jar. So I don't know what happened with that, or if maybe I have it all wound into a ball somewhere in my stash. So this is the mystery, the current mystery. And then we have the last one, which is another variegated. I used mostly semi-solids, apart from this dark variegated, and this is almost like a brighter version. Well, that's not the last stripe. Second to last stripe. I'm looking at the arm. There's a couple less stripes on the arm. And I did an extra stripe because I wanted to get this color in there again, according to the pattern. So yeah, this bright one is a pair of socks I made myself that I really enjoy wearing. Nice bright colors. These have been washed many, many times, so it is starting to fade a little. So it was kind of nice to to knit with the original yarn that was still all bright. And so this bright variegated stripe with the green and the pink and the pop of blue is Flock Fiber Studio Take a Hike sock. And I thought a lot of the colors in that variegated are already in the rest of the sweater, so I thought it sort of tied it all together. And then for the last stripe, I decided we needed to calm down a little bit like the inspiration to add the gray. Something a little calmer. This is just a green, and that's Wollmeise. Remember when we would all get up at like weird times in the middle of the night to buy yarn from Germany? I did it once, and I think I got a couple skeins, and I got more than a couple skeins. And then it arrived, and it says it's wool, but it just feels so hard. Like, it feels way more cottony than any other wool I've felt. Although knitted with the larger needle, it feels quite nice in this silky little sweater. So that's Wollmeise. I think the colorway was mistletoe. Again, I don't have this object. This I knit into a scarf for a swap project. And then I never actually photographed it, was my mistake, because I think I was probably late sending my swap partner the parcel. So I finished it up, stuffed it in the box, and never took a photo. On my Ravelry page, there is a photo that she sent me that she said was okay to post on Ravelry. Again, a million years ago. This was 2012. So I'm not going to put it in the YouTube video, but if you really want to see a blurry photo of a couple things that I made in that swap, including a seaweedy, sort of ruffly scallopedy scarf, that's there. And then that's that for this adorable little tiny human sweater, which hopefully will fit the new tiny human soon, or in 6 months. I thought this was too big the whole time I was knitting it. I was like, I'm knitting a toddler sweater. And then as soon as it was off the needles, I was like, is that going to fit anything? I can never judge. I just pick a size in the pattern and make it and hope that they know what they're doing and that my gauge is doing the right thing. I really liked it. I loved working on this. It was so fun to have the little pops of color. Like, just when you've done a few rows of blue and you're thinking, oh, this navy blue is getting kind of boring, then pow, you get to put some orange in there, or some red, or like bright acid green. That was tons of fun. And so this I started with plenty of time. I did not need to be knitting down to the wire to the time that my coworker is going to go on leave, but I did. But I finished it this past weekend, and then, because why not, I decided to knit a hat to go in the bag with it. It does not match, but so obviously I think it goes. Like, there's stripes, there's blue, there's red, there's pink. So I think it kind of goes. But this was leftovers of a self-striping sock yarn. Oh, I made socks out of this. I'm very sorry, I have a dog on my lap. I will put in a photo, but I still have the socks I made out of this for myself. And I wear them. I enjoy them. I love doing this to baby hats. Like, at this point, I just cast on either 90 or 100 stitches and make a tiny hat. I do have a hat pattern that I pull up to just do the decreases, because I can never remember how to get them looking all swirly and nice. But it barely feels like I'm using a pattern at this point, because I don't even do an edge. I just let it roll, which I think is very cute. And then I can't remember the original pattern where I saw this little thing. Actually, it's not complete yet. But you sort of decrease the hat down to 3 stitches and then just knit a little bit of icord at the top, tie a little knot. I just think it's silly and cute. But yeah, I think I used the same needles that I did for the sweater, the 3.5mm. So this, again, is much drapier and softer than my pair of socks are. And I think I did 90 stitches. I started with 100, and then I got about this far, and I thought, that's so big. It has to be too big. So for once I actually ripped it out and then recast on 90 stitches instead of 100, and then did that. Will it fit at the same time as the sweater? We don't know. Doesn't really matter. I'm happy I made them so they could coordinate at least. If maybe this size sweater fits this size head. Which I'm starting to think it won't because the hat is most of the body of the sweater. They'll both fit the baby sometime. Crazy Aunt Heather makes crazy colored things for poor little babies that can't object to being put in whatever color we want to put them in. But yeah, so I took so long to make the sweater. The hat took a day and some TV watching. But yeah, so this yarn is Mustache Yarns. It's the Ritz sock base, and I think you can just, there's a little bit of sparkle in it. It feels super soft inside. Like, I can't feel any of that very fine tinsel stuff at all. It just adds sparkle. You can't feel it, so I think it will be okay on little tiny baby head. But yes, there's a little bit of glitter. And then the fun stripes. I think this is, yeah, this is an Elsa and Anna inspired colorway. So there's 2 shades of blue, and I think the reds are meant to be, like, I think this one is red and this one is like magenta. It's hard to see even in the daylight to me that these are different reds. Obviously the blues are different, dark blue, light blue, but I'm pretty sure those two, one's red, one's magenta. It's just hard to see. I'm not wearing as many scarves as I thought I would be. Although I guess I didn't put the hat on. I should have put the hat on. And I'm already wearing socks, so I couldn't put on the socks from the lime green stripe. So yeah, that's my little baby bundle that I'm going to give away tomorrow. Oh yeah, the other thing that I thought was so cool about the Petit mariniere sweater is that if you look, this is the front, and you can see that there's just a couple rows between the neckline ribbing and the first stripe. The back, there's much more. There's actually short row shaping in this little tiny sweater for a little tiny baby, which I think is really great. Like, it's a detail that doesn't make it into a lot of adult sweater patterns. And so I just think it's a really nice sign that this is in this little baby sweater. It also makes it, I think, more obvious that there's a front and a back. Because I know for sweaters I've made myself, sometimes I can't tell the front from the back. Okay, so that is the March update to the What Have I Knitted So Far in 2023 episode. Thanks for hanging around between now me and past me. And by the time this gets up to YouTube, they're all past me. And who knows what else I've knitted since then. Probably not a lot, I'm just gonna say. But I do have yet another coworker baby to prepare for. I think I've got until June-ish to get that set done. So I'm going to start on that. And maybe a pair of socks for myself or something simple to travel around. It's been so nice to talk knitting again. I mean, that's how I got started doing videos like this, is knitting podcast. It's so fun to have enough brain for knitting, like to get that part of my brain kickstarted again. That was great. So great to talk to you about it and see my lovely little stripy teeny tiny makes. It's just so cute. I just want to keep looking at them. So I'm going to have to take some really good photos tonight before I wrap everything up. If you want more details about the knitting things, I will put everything's in my Ravelry, which I know isn't accessible, so I'll put as much detail as I can in the YouTube description as well. Again, as you saw from the age of the yarn that's in some of those stripes, I don't know how many of those yarn dyers are still dying even, because like some of that's from 2008. I'm sure some of them still are. I will add the links where I can. Thank you for joining me. If you enjoyed this, please like and subscribe. It helps so much. It's so fun to see those numbers going up. I talk about knitting on this channel. I also talk a lot about sewing. I find I sort of go back and forth between the two crafts. So lately, I've been knitting, trying to get this done. I've got some really inspiring sewing projects that I'm excited to show you and to get started on. And I'm excited to go through my yarn stash to see what I'm going to knit next. Will I use up more leftovers? Will I crack into a new ball of sock yarn? I don't know. I have so much yarn. I have like a little mini yarn shop, it feels like sometimes. So I'm excited to see what really, really past me bought like years ago, because I've bought very little yarn in the past few years. And yet I have so much yarn from everything I'd collected. before then. And then I moved across the country with. So I'm really excited to see what I end up pulling out for the next project, because I don't even know what it's going to be yet. But yeah, thanks for watching. Like, subscribe. There's sewing, there's knitting, and we'll see you later. There's still so much yarn. I will never have to buy yarn again.